We lost a very special and very important member of our Campbell family last week when former Campbell men's basketball and golf coach and color analyst on our men's basketball broadcast, Jerry Smith, passed away. Smith was the head basketball coach for Campbell from 1983 to 85, and from 81 to 83, the head men's golf coach. Smith devoted his entire professional career to educating youth in eastern North Carolina on the high school and collegiate level. A Campbell alum, Smith won a state title coaching Bertie County in 1971. He won a couple more titles at the collegiate level with Chowan before coming back to Campbell. After Campbell, he was the principal at Lewisburg, Green Central, and Clayton High Schools. The basketball court at Clayton is named in his honor. He was also awarded the state's highest civilian honor, the Order of the Longleaf Pine, for his dedication to education in 2008. Jerry Smith was a kind, caring, hard-working man who loved teaching and loved Campbell. The best story I have to represent this is when we first were on the air together. Jerry had been the color analyst for Campbell men's basketball for 2 years before I started here at Campbell in 2011. I asked if he would stay on and do the games with me, and he agreed. No one knew more about Campbell basketball. Literally. At that time, Coach probably went to over 50% of the practices that Campbell men's basketball had. Not only did Coach do every home game on the air with me, if we were anywhere, and I mean anywhere, under a 5-hour drive away for a road contest, he would be there. Because he did not want to be away from Bowie's Creek or his wife for an entire night, Jerry, usually with Ronald, his friend riding shotgun, would drive day of to be on the air with me for the game. Whether Charleston or Clinton, South Carolina, or Radford, Virginia, whether the game was at noon or 7, he would go up and back. An unbelievable amount of dedication. A couple of months into this season, I asked Coach how much did he get paid for the broadcasts and everything he did. I wanted to get the payment process started, and he told me he did not get paid for the previous 2 years he was on the air, that it was volunteer. I made sure he did get paid from then on, and was lucky enough to have him by my side for nearly every broadcast through 2019. On the broadcast, he was always positive, never negative, able to put a Campbell spin on it, and he had a basketball knowledge that is unmatched. On GoCamels.com, there is a great article about him with a podcast Stan Cole did with him back in 2022. He is also one of the many stars and voices on the Campbell Basketball School documentary we debuted last fall. A link to that film is in the article as well. Count me as one of the many, many people whose life was made better by Jerry Smith. I thank him for all he has done for me and Campbell, and I will miss him dearly. Hello, everybody, and welcome into Camel Call with Evan Budrovich. I'm Chris Hemeyer. Thank you so much for giving us a listen. And Evan, I talked a lot on air last week and at the beginning of this show about Jerry Smith, but probably next to me, you worked on the air with him the next most. What are some of your memories of the coach?
Jerry had the most firm handshake I'd ever met for any age, right? 20s, 30s, in his case, as his life continued. He also had the biggest smile on his face.
Yeah.
Like it could be a 30-point blowout or it could be the best game in the world. And Coach was so happy to sit at that desk and just give his thoughts on the game. And, you know, getting to know him better living at Keith Hills. So he would drive in his golf cart with his dog every evening at Keith Hills. And we used to go to the range a lot pre-COVID. So I'd see him there a couple days a week at the range. And, you know, of course, his grandkids played golf and the McLam family kind of made their way through with Brett McLam and that relationship there. But to see him kind of as a grandpa and a dad, but then also like he was the basketball coach's best friend. You know, yeah. Kevin would come to him after practice and they would chat. Coach was the first guy I worked with as an analyst here at Campbell. And you know, Jerry, like he had his fun one-liners and he had a Southern twang to him, but he was a really smart guy and he knew basketball. And he also knew kind of what buttons to press, like when he was out as a commentator, you know, hey, do I get on this person? Do I compliment this person? And Coach was honest, you know, right? And that's what we ask of our people. And then just as a human being, he loved Campbell. He was at every Campbell thing, even until his final days. And it's a shame that he passed, but I am glad that we're honoring him. There's a big event this weekend for him, and a nice way to wrap up his life.
Yeah, and you make a good comment. If he wasn't at a basketball game or in a basketball gym when he had quote unquote retired, he was golfing or always around that golf cart with his dogs. He will be missed. A special man. We will talk about his favorite sport, both of their favorite sports, basketball and golf, coming up a little later. But our Campbell wrestling team, look, they've been good for a while. We've said that. It's been a half decade of a team that's been like they are right now, ranked 26th and 27th in the poll. But something that I've never seen before in the history of Campbell wrestling, it took place last Friday. What an amazing environment. It set an attendance record for Campbell wrestling. It was last Friday. Campbell took on App State in front of the largest crowd in Campbell history. It was an amazing atmosphere in Gore Arena.
I had never seen a champion be lifted up in the air. And the way Tay Gaudiali won that last event, like typically in wrestling, you clap your hands, you get your hands are in the air.
There was a mat storm, much like a court and a field storm, and then they lifted him up, which is not a easy
lacrosse team. Like imagine you just ran a marathon and have you on your shoulders, and that's the Herculean effort it took winning those last two bouts, even to get to Tay to have a chance to then whoever won that final heavyweight. And it was fun too with the coverage of Flow Sports, of UFC Fight Pass, some of the trash talk between Tay and the App State program, and then for Tay to go in there and take care of business in that first round. Like it was a quick pin. That was impressive on his part because he's a top 10 wrestler in the country.
Yeah.
And to back it up and with the team on the line, you're basically fighting for your SoCon chances. If you lose to App, you're probably not winning the regular season title.
Yeah, it's those two.
And you have Chattanooga coming up in February in a couple weeks. But you win that match and you can run the table. So for him to do it and then win that final heavyweight match, that was neat television.
It was amazing and dramatic how it happened. Campbell came out, again, with some of the biggest energy I've seen, period. Not just Campbell wrestling, but amazing for that. Come back, get the first one. Campbell got the first one in Tech Fall fashion, got the first match, and then it was 5 straight matches that App won. They didn't get a lot of bonus points in it, so Campbell was still in it, but Campbell knew that they had to win the final 4 matches and get some bonus points, and they did just that. Campbell won the final 4 matches. Austin Murphy got a win. Caleb Hopkins with a pin, which was huge. His brother Levi Hopkins got a win, and then Tay came in. He had to win the match. He didn't have to get bonus points, but he had to win the match. It was still on the line, and he got a pin in the first period. It was just electric, and there was literally a mat storm when it came out.
What I love, too, it was a student involvement thing.
Yes, a lot of the student athletes were there, too.
It was students. People were, and we've talked about this amongst ourselves, we have asked what will it take for a fan base to truly be on their feet every second of a match, a game, whatever sport it is. And in that atmosphere, especially with the television of UFC, there were people constantly making noise, constantly cheering. Even when things were going bad, they were staying invested. They were having the signs. That type of atmosphere you can package and repurpose. Now, it starts with the student athletes having those relationships and reaching out, but it's a great lesson for everyone involved here. When Gore Arena has loud noise and atmosphere, we've seen it with Chris Clemens in basketball, it is an electric, elite mid-major facility, and that's how it played for wrestling.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Then Campbell came back in less dramatic fashion, blew out Gardner-Webb. So Campbell wrestling on a roll, 6 dual win streak.
What do you think of this new North-South Barbecue Bowl, by the way? Gardner-Webb and Charleston.
Speaking of Gardner-Webb, you're going to Big South football now. I didn't think we'd be talking about that.
So they left us, the East-West barbecue.
Yeah.
They tilted the axis, north and south.
Yeah. It's a barbecue. They can do South Carolina and North Carolina barbecue if you want to. Hopefully we'll get Gardner-Webb back in here for some different things. Again, we're such similar schools, but yeah, they left our barbecue bowl to go to another one. Wrestling, speaking of barbecue, on a roll. 9-3 overall, 3-0 in conference. And as we said, even though they have 4 more, I think, conference duels, it's been App and Campbell 1-2 for the last half decade. Last year, App broke Campbell's regular season streak, also beat him in the tournament. So it's good that Campbell has the 1 trophy. And then they'll have to go up to Boone for the conference tournament again.
And don't sleep on Bellarmine. I know the big news with Bellarmine is they got robbed of an NCAA berth because of the D2, D1 matriculation rules. They're 4-0 in the league.
Yeah.
Now, they haven't played the best programs, and that'll be coming up, but You can't just go into Kentucky and think you're going to get some bourbon and get out of there. Like,
Yeah.
you got to go in there and compete. Now, they have the Citadel this weekend. That's always a feisty, with the military schools, there's just a feisty mentality to that. But, man, the way they dominated Gardner-Webb, I don't think Scotty's going to let him take this lightly.
Yeah, that Bellarmine match is all the way in Kentucky on Sunday, and they've got to play at home. They'll be in Carter Gym. You should go just to see wrestling in that atmosphere. And
Bring
two,
some earmuffs.
yeah, and to Carter Gym, if you didn't know before, Gore Arena, it was one of the smallest basketball venues in the country. That's where Campbell played. So it's neat to go in there, look around, and be like, I can't believe they played basketball here 16 years ago. But it's fun for wrestling, and when they were getting this program going, they had all their home matches over there because 200 people feel like a lot more. It's free. It's at 7 o'clock coming up in Carter Gym versus the Citadel this Friday, and then a week from Saturday, final home match back in Gore Arena, 2 p.m. versus Chattanooga, which is the other quote-unquote top-tier teams in the conference. CAA doesn't have wrestling, neither did Big South, so they're in the Southern Conference.
So Chattanooga, they've come into Bowie's Creek and robbed Campbell of a title. This was
true
pre-COVID now, so 3 or 4 years ago. But their program's dipped a touch, but them and App State will have individual champions, and that's how you win the conference, of course, getting the most team points. So, yeah, that February 17th, I would circle that if you're a Campbell fan, because that you could literally clinch. You wouldn't outright clinch, but you would essentially clinch the title that day.
And you had mentioned he was the big hero, and again is backing up what he says. Only 3 losses on the year. Campbell's heavyweight, Tay Gadi Ali, is ranked kind of in the top 10, around the top 10. Campbell is looking right now with 6 ranked wrestlers. If things go right, they could again, which they have done this for the last half decade, year in and year out, send 6 individuals to the NCAA tournament. What they haven't done, except only one time, is the fact that they have put someone on the podium. You get in the top 8, you're an All-American at Nationals. And boy, Tay Gadi Ali, barring some injury or something odd happen, if he can stay in the top 10, he'll be on the right side of the bracket. And Campbell has a chance to do something that they've only done once, which would put the cherry on the top of what has been an amazing year, where they've been on UFC Fight Pass 4 different times now. I mean, it's just insane.
They announced a 5-year extension of that media rights deal.
Yeah.
Now other schools will be involved, but to have Campbell as kind of the figurehead of that, that's been great exposure.
Yeah, and I mean, it was Scotty Sintez, and he'll tell the story that UFC people were poking around the NCAA tournament a couple years ago. Most people at the bigger schools were like, hey, we're trying to win a national championship here. We don't want to talk to you.
We have media rights to use.
Scotty was trying to do the same thing. He talked to him, and he has kind of pulled this thing out of thin air, and it's become a national thing. And the exposure, you can't even put a dollar amount, but a lot of credit to Scotty, who has always thought outside of the box. When he was coaching in California, they had one of the first outside wrestling matches, and he continues to do it. And he has one of his best teams ever, so it'll be fun to watch them keep on chugging. Speaking of keep on chugging, setting records and different things, our track and field team, what has been amazing here in this run is, okay, you're in the CAA, great conference for track. Well, the CAA championships for indoor, they're February 22nd and 23rd in New York City. That all is amazing. But a couple of weekends ago at the Camel Invitational Winston-Salem and in Clemson, Campbell not only, which they seem to do every single meet, personal records, school records, they broke 3 CAA records. So to come into the conference, your first month in the conference lately, and bring down CAA records is just incredible. A CAA record in the women's 60 by Jaden Ramsey, a CAA record in the women's 200, Brianna Clayton, and a men's 200 CAA record in the 200 meters by Dom Alexander. Of course, a couple of names on there are new. Dom Alexander has been doing this, but to come into a conference and set conference records, just incredible. They have a shot of bringing home some hardware at CAA championships.
The way the CAA is structured, now the Big South was a little different. Some teams could bring 85 athletes and rack up points in all these competitions. It would make it nearly impossible for Campbell. That is not as much the case in the CAA.
Right.
So when you think big picture, you want your individual titles in your 60-meter, your long jump, your high jump, all those events. But you also want to have top 3s, get 2 or 3 best, get the podium finishes. That point structure in this league, and remember Jeff Claves, friend of the program, he's at UNC Wilmington, so there could be some fun there. This league is more open to, if your competitors are elite at a high level, you can earn enough points to win the conference. And that's always been Campbell's bugaboo on the men's side, is the amount of competitors that High Point has. And their women's program, like you've mentioned, has made huge strides. We talked Chastity Pickett a lot in her Olympic aspirations, but it's a depth of a program. And man, when they compete in New York and then the national championships indoor in Greensboro, that could be a huge month for Campbell track and field.
I'm telling you, it is exciting to see what they do. Again, you're like, okay, you're leveling up here. What have you done? And they are crushing.
They do the most with less, not just in terms of facilities, but scholarship allotments. Some of the disadvantages they have compared to their peers in the league, they've outperformed it, and thanks to their grit, thanks to coaching, thanks to culture. But that's always been a program that's done more with less. And that's why I always give them credit, much like swimming. They don't have the fancy gizmos and gadgets that other programs do, and they find ways to produce champions in their conference and then regionally as well.
The gizmos and gadgets. It just puts you ahead. Hey, going on to the golf courses, a great finish. This is a men's team. Matt Moot has had to rebuild this men's team, and they finished 8th in a packed field down at a rain-shortened Briar Creek Invitational hosted by the College of Charleston. They will be in Raleigh. We'll get a chance to see them at the Wolfpack Invite on February 24th and 25th.
Tracked.
And it's fun. Like it's free to go up there. If you've never seen a high-level golf tournament live, you watch it on TV and you're like, these guys are good. And look, these guys aren't pros. They sometimes hit shots like you do on the collegiate level. But man, it's awesome to see these guys play golf up close.
Seeing the driving ability,
yeah.
Right? So off the tee box, and they hit it 350 consistently. And I'll give John Crooks credit. Matt Moot obviously runs the men's program. Crooks is like the archangel who oversees both programs.
Archangel.
He is. He's had 30-plus years managing both programs. But Coach Crooks has always recruited players that swing well off the tee box. Our women's program traditionally outdrives many Power 5 programs. Even on the men's side, we've had some powerful Jesper Svensson. You think of some of the other Swedes we've had, Pontus Nyholm, who's now competing for a possible tour card next year in the PGA.
Yep.
In this tournament, too, they showed they beat Nebraska, UNCW, obviously a league foe, Boston College, and Virginia Tech. So that slates up really well in the ACC. Now, NC State is an elite program. That's going to be a hard tournament to win. But in golf, the point structure is different. Okay, your RPI is X. If you finish 7th, but teams with higher RPI finish below you, you get a ton of points. So it's really about where you finish and who finishes around you.
Yeah, and it's the women's turn as they will go out. They consistently conference champions.
They're like Tom Brady.
They
have a handful of rings.
It's unbelievable. February 12th and February 13th, they'll be down in Jacksonville, Florida at the Seabass Intercollegiate. Our tennis teams got their first wins over last weekend as they start rounding into shape in the spring. Check their schedules at gocamels.com. Free to go out there and see them. They're playing, gosh, you want to talk about packed schedules, 2, 3, 4 times a week usually. They have a lot of home matches. Sometimes the men and women play at the same time. It's a whole lot of fun to be out there.
And the orange smoke on Sunday.
The run out. That was really cool.
Because tennis, you build your own atmosphere a little bit with student support and the cheering of the players on different courts. That's a neat vibe if you want a few hours of fun.
Yeah, no doubt. We told you about all the stuff going on this weekend. We mentioned wrestling on Friday, also Friday here at home. The Campbell women's basketball team gets back after it. Now, Campbell women's basketball 11-9 overall, and there are 4-5 in the conference, but they're right in the middle of the conference, just 2 games out of 4th place. 4th place is, we're going to be talking a lot about that now because that's the magic.
We're not Will Ferrell in the Flint Tropics, but we are playing for 4th place.
That's right. Not playing for 4th place, but if you get into 4th place, you get a double bye and a 14 team on both the men's and women's side for the CAA tournament. You want to definitely stay out of 10 through 14, which you would have to play on the first day. If you're in the middle there, you get a bye.
About that, if you're in the bottom 4, you have to win 5 games in 5 days.
Yeah.
Which, even in the college baseball schedule, is ridiculous. And then the running and gunning of basketball, we've talked about the 3-3, win 3 games in 3 days on the men's side, but now in this conference, it's 5 games if you finish bottom 4.
And we've talked about this before. You and I both like that because in a one big league, which the CAA, again, striving on both the men's and women's side to not be there. And they've been close to. Last year, they probably, if Charleston wouldn't have won, they might have gotten 2 teams in. But in a one big league, you play so many games in the conference season. It's almost, what are we doing this for if you don't really protect the people at the top? I like the fact that the double bye, the middle gets a bye. And look, you have an advantage if you're in the top 4. There's a big difference, as we've seen Campbell when they've made these runs to the conference tournament finals. In the men's side of basketball, you can win 3 games in 3 days. That's tough. 4 games in 4 days is really tough.
And last year, for some perspective, the men's final 1 through 4 all made the semis. Obviously, Charleston held off Wilmington. They won it 1 versus 3. The women's side, it was the 7 seed Monmouth who went to Towson and beat Towson on its home court. This year, we've seen Stony Brook be really good, 8-1, and both have come here, A&T, at 8-1, 2 quality programs. But the way Campbell's played both those teams, this is not juggernauts and has-beens.
Yeah.
Any team can beat anybody in the women's side. And a 4-5 record, they've had 2 losses with double-digit leads in the second half, right? And you can say, well, you deserve to lose that game because you didn't finish it. They're playing a team that's ascending. And the way their schedule plays out, they have a chance to get right back above 500 here pretty quick.
Yeah, and Campbell just a couple games out of the top 4. Again, it's not going to be easy, but they have beaten some of the best teams in the conference, which gives you a lot of hope for what's coming up. And they'll be at home this Friday at 7 o'clock. The men are back for a Thursday, Saturday, a couple of home games back to back. It starts 7 o'clock on Thursday. It'll be on Flow Hoops. We'll have it on Flow Hoops for you. We'll also have live audio for you. Sort of a similar situation for what the men are doing and what they're faced with. Look, this was a men's team that was picked to finish 12th out of 14th at the beginning of the year. The computer projections had them maybe winning 4 conference games this year. Right now, Campbell is 5-5. 500, more than halfway through. They are tied for 7th place in the conference right now, 2 games out of, like we said, the top 4. And I'll tell you what, in a loss, it was probably the best that I've felt at a Campbell basketball's loss ever, because UNCW, who had beaten Charleston twice, who is a favorite to win this conference.
Well, on paper was a 20-point favorite.
Yeah.
Like that's a Power 5 versus a mid-major line, and that's in your conference.
Yeah. It was a packed house. 5,100 were in there. They had just come off a win for Charleston. They were ready to go. Campbell, it was unfair that Campbell lost that game. And the reason that I say that was UNCW played well. Campbell played better. And on the final 2 field goals that UNCW made in that game, both with under a minute and a half left, they were both at the end of the shot clock. One banked in from the free throw line. The other one was a fadeaway LeBron-type shot to beat the shot clock from a guy that doesn't shoot more than 2 feet from the basket that he made. Again, not saying anything about a lot of the other stuff that happened in there, but it was unfair for a Campbell team that really could have come out of there with a win. They didn't, but they're in perfect position there to definitely stay out of the bottom 4. But Evan, they have proven something to me. The one thing that was missing from what they've done in the CAA, it's like, look, they took on the 2 tough teams, the 2 top teams in the conference, Charleston and Towson. They got blown out by them pretty good. Against UNCW was a game they should have won, and UNCW is a team that's right up there with them.
I love how that rivalry will form the next 5 or 6 years.
No doubt.
You get an immediate sense. Obviously, Charleston is a big fish that people love to play. But at Wilmington's that next tier, and especially with Campbell sports, you think baseball, you think soccer, you even think volleyball. Those 3 have played every year.
Yeah.
And now basketball with their traditional Christmas week game. Now this becomes a full-on home and home. And coming here for that CBS Sports game, I mean, the atmosphere at Wilmington, just watching on the stream, there was great crowd intensity from that student section.
Absolutely.
But even Campbell people traveled to Wilmington.
Yeah.
And that animosity, that excitement, I think that translates back to home. And what's nice about it, too, we've searched for a rival in this league. I think one has emerged in Wilmington.
Well, and they've played since 1951. That's enough to begin with. But this was the 109th meeting, and they've never been conference opponents. If you look back that many games, it's because when they were junior college opponents, they would play home and home every year because it's just 2 hours down the road. And then when they were in NAIA, they played home and home. And then even in Division I, they would play some home and homes. It's an easy 2-hour drive. It's a really good atmosphere.
I want to say it's 4 right turns or 3 left turns.
You're right. You're right. You don't have to. No. You're saying that absolutely right.
You go left out of this part
at 95, then you go 95, then you go 40.
You take a left to get to 40. I think you take a right off the highway and then like a left to campus.
Yeah. You get a little bit of Google Maps here with it as well. But yeah, it's going to be a fun rivalry. Interesting though to note, UNCW, state school, they've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. 18,000 undergrad there. Also, what I think is going to become a rivalry, and really actually when you think about the schools, a similar school, I talked about Gardner-Webb because they were almost the exact same. Elon. Elon is a similar school, private, not too far away from stuff, but a little bit in the middle of nowhere.
The football element helps.
And they've got a football team, and it takes an hour and a half to get to. Campbell played both those teams last week. That's what was fun.
Did you not have a heart attack at the end of that Elon game?
That was a lot.
So
with
that's
a last-second shot.
And then Delhi goes right down the court. And we've talked about big moments for stars, right? And Chris is a different tier of star, but the way Delorso...
Chris Clemens, not me. Yes, go ahead.
Well, you were great too, Chris. I listened to the radio call. But the way Delorso took control of that last play, gets to the basket, and essentially wins the game, that's something we've asked of Campbell. Late in games, we saw Drew Pember do that against us in the Big South Final, make big plays when his team needed it. That's an element of Delorso who keeps getting better, and you say, who's your closer? Well, you kind of get a sense who the closer is now.
There is no doubt. Taking that ball with 8 seconds left, putting it in to beat Elon, to sweep Elon. Great news for Campbell. Again, that's an Elon team that's an hour and a half away. What I was telling people, and look, yes, next week we're going to have to get on a plane and go up to New Jersey to take on Monmouth and Drexel. It'll be a 4-day trip. I understand that. That's different than the Big South. But last week we were on the road twice. Our guys didn't miss any class, and I was on the trip, quote unquote. I called both games, and I didn't have to spend a night at the hotel.
Half the league is a Big South travel schedule.
Yeah.
Right. From
no doubt.
Mary down, it is a Big South travel schedule. The other half of the league isn't. Yeah. And that's the exciting part of it from an admissions and an eyeball and an opportunity standpoint. But then, yes, from a travel standpoint, that's tough on the legs. And we've seen opponents come here on those back-to-backs and struggle. So when you're on the road, you got to split. What I love, too, about Campbell men this year, and can I use the quote?
Sure.
So Kevin McGeehan said postgame, our team was tough as hell. And that's not always
I didn't know you were going to say hell on air.
But Campbell basketball, that team has been more finesse.
Yeah.
They've been more shoot threes and get opportunities, but they were physical. They were battling on the boards at Wilmington. They outplayed them for stretches of that game.
Yeah.
That's not a team we've seen in the past from Campbell, and that's a promising sign that they can compete with the best in the league.
No doubt. And it'll be fun, again, taking on those Northeastern teams. Literally, the team is called Northeastern. They're from Boston. That's another...
It's a huge public school. Like, it is elite, top 100 public school.
It's a great academic school, and there is 16,000 undergrad as well.
And Tom Glavin's brother, Mike Glavin's the baseball coach there, and they're in the top 25 preseason poll.
Very good baseball team. I'm glad that you brought that up. That'll be at 7 o'clock on Thursday. Stony Brook comes in at 2 o'clock. They're out of Long Island. One of the best mascots.
15 years ago.
And one of the best mascots as well. They're the Sea Wolves. It's the wolf, but it's a cool thing. And again, when they open up their broadcast, they show the beach because they are in Long Island, way up there.
That Hofstra-Stony Brook trip is always fascinating to me because Long Island, New York, it's hard to get to.
Not easy to get to.
Pocket of the country.
It is a Long Island, and it is something that many people don't know about. And again, that's the fun thing. Northeastern comes down here. Stony Brook comes down here. Two very good teams that we haven't played before, and it'll be fun. Like every CAA matchup is a thing. You're playing a team usually with some tradition from a school, and the fact that we get to play these two. And you mentioned how the schedule goes out. Hey, I know Campbell is ready to put together a run, but again, we've talked about how they've overachieved right now, whatever has happened.
But tough the next few weeks.
Look at things. Next week, going at Monmouth, at Drexel. Drexel is first in the conference. Monmouth has been right there in the middle. These two games, Northeastern and Stony Brook, what you do this week will go a long way to what you're going to do to finish 500 or above in the conference. Look, next time you're home, February 22nd, 26th, taking on Hampton, but then you got UNCW, and then you're at the College of Charleston. You come back for NC-A&T, so you really see how you gotta perform this week.
I'm going to read between the lines. I'm seeing a lot of 1-and-1s coming up, and the ability to go 2-0 at home is fantastic for your record.
I think what we've also seen in this conference, I don't think you can pencil in a win or a loss because both of these teams, all of these teams that are left on the schedule have high ceilings, and you've also seen them, kind of fall down as well, and I mean that's UNCW included. So it'll be a lot of fun on Flow, of course, and Lyndall Suggs will have live audio coverage for you. You mentioned you always seem to get baseball in somehow. You told us about how Stony Brook has a good baseball tradition.
He came by the office to drop off some donations for the pitching facility over there.
And you were able to see the coach, and he's got to be really excited because his Campbell baseball team, again, you want to talk about a half decade of excellence coming off a year when they were in the top 15 from the majority of the year. They will get things ready. We won't be on the air next week, but I'll tell you, we will be visiting with all of his assistant coaches on Camel Call Live coming up this Monday, 6:30 to 7:30 at the county seat. And I'm hoping when we post that live podcast later in the week that I'll also be able to sneak in a Justin Hare interview as well. They start the year with a bang. Next weekend, they'll take on UC Santa Barbara. If you're like, is that one of the good California schools?
Yes.
You're darn right it is. They're in the top 20 this year.
The Gauchos have elite pitching, and their head coach has been a national candidate for the last decade. Andrew Checkitz is his name. And what that program brings, they bunt, they steal bases, they get hit by pitches. It's a West Coast style of offense that you'd say, oh, that sort of mirrors Campbell 5 years ago. Campbell's added the power element and then the home run element. But those Gauchos, 2 All-American pitchers in the rotation, 1 starter, 1 bullpen arm. And Campbell has one of 6 All-Americans in the CAA with Lawson Harrell, who's a top 10 outfielder in the country. Pitching, a lot of new arms, a lot of new names, but a lot of talent. And that new pitching coach from Wingate is fantastic.
Yeah, and you know, I haven't had a chance to talk to Justin here yet about baseball. I usually wait till about a week beforehand when he's kind of comfortable with what he has. But talking to other people around that program, deeper than they've ever been position player-wise, which is something that's pretty amazing when you consider how deep and how good they've been. And with new pitching, remember, with the transfer portal, with freshmen, with the kind of people that they're bringing in. I know you're thinking because of injuries and because of the draft and people that left, oh my gosh, is Campbell going to have any pitching? The answer is probably yes. Again, we'll know a lot more playing a good team. I love when you play a great team like this off the bat. And oh, by the way, on February 20th, after number 17, UC Santa Barbara comes in for a weekend series, it's East Carolina. So you'll know after those 4 games a little bit more about where you stand. Look, if your record isn't great coming out of those 4, hey, it would be a really, really good thing. It would be a really good thing. But if you get beat up a little bit, hey, you know what you have to improve on playing against the best teams in the country.
We have been spoiled the last 2 years with Thomas Harrington and Cade Keeler. You think of Friday night starters that have MLB potential and draft acumen and bring scouts to the prospects. So this year, the big arm, and it's interesting, right, when you bring in a transfer, but Derek Vartanian, he comes in as a JUCO transfer, and he hits 95. Like, this kid is someone they think will go to the next level and pitch, maybe this year, maybe next year. So if you want to come to a game, I'd go Friday at, what time is it, 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever time Justin decides. But those games are cold, but they're exciting because, like, you get the bats out for the first time. Power arms usually dominate those first 2 weekends, and Campbell has good arms. So if you want pitching, defense, and I will say Campbell defensively could be better than ever before. And that was a little bit of an issue last year. We had a Max Weller in the outfield. He'll now move to DH. You had some rotational guys on the infield who were more corner guys playing the middle. Trenton Harris, really good up the middle defensively. That'll help. This team could be really solid in the fundamental side of the game.
Yeah, no doubt. 19 of their first 23 games are at home. Ohio comes in here. UNC, ECU, Charleston Southern, Delaware, one of the better teams in there. So there is going to be a lot of baseball out at Jim Perry Stadium for the next month, and it all starts next Friday at 5 o'clock. Campbell taking on UC Santa Barbara. This weekend, it's on the road, but our Campbell softball team, again, they have won the regular season and the tournament for 3 straight years. They are on a run that is reaching almost as epic status as we've seen from the Campbell baseball team. And in the second year of Campbell head coach Trina Prater, expect more of the same. They've gotten better depth-wise in their pitching rotation. And also with that, this year in the CAA, the majority of their weekend series have moved from a Friday and then a Saturday doubleheader to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which could allow you to pitch someone like Bella Smith every single day if you need to.
Depth in pitching is key. And as we've seen in this conference, even in the Big South, winning close games. In the top half of the CAA with Delaware, who was picked first, I will say Campbell had more first-place votes, but all the total votes, and you add them up, pick second. And then Wilmington, right there in the top 3 or 4. Those were elite programs. And the challenge for Campbell now is, from an offensive standpoint, finding different ways to score. This has always been a great pitching and defensive team. Now, good news for them, they play Coastal right away. They play Syracuse, who's good. UConn, who's a Big East, traditional top 4 or 5 team. And then NC State with a new coaching staff. So you'll see right away 2 weeks in. And think about Bella Smith with her Power 5 wins in the circle the last 2 or 3 years. I want to say it's at least 5. It might be 7. I got to check with Tristan Elledge on the numbers, but her ability to win big games, she has never been afraid of those moments.
No doubt at all. And they've challenged themselves with this schedule. It's amazing what they're going out and playing, and it starts going down to Coastal Carolina to play in their tournament Friday at 3. They'll take on George Washington. You talked about Syracuse. It's going to be there a couple times, then Coastal. And then the next week they'll go up to NC State to take on an NC State team that they beat last year. UConn and NDSU will be there. They return home for the Camel Stampede Tournament February 23rd.
That's the bird
through
tournament.
The 25th.
They should have called it the Camel Flock Stampede. Incarnate Word, Eagles. St. Joseph's, Eagles. Winthrop, Eagles. There's a lot of birds flying down to Bowie's Creek. I know birds fly south in the winter, but do you have to bring all the birds down, Trina? I know kind of the beyond the game stuff you're thinking of there, but a lot of birds and eagles coming to Bowie's Creek.
But there's more. Women's lacrosse starts up this weekend. You gotta love crossover.
They bring
season.
Spiders. They don't bring.
Gotta love.
There's
they'll bring Richmond down noon Saturday coming up. So before you go out to the men's game, coming out to women's lacrosse, it is free. Again, huge challenge for a team that vaulted themselves to the top of the Big South Conference. They were 1, 2, or 3 in the Big South Conference these final years. Coach Don Easley has done an amazing job of literally building this program from scratch. And now they go into literally one of the best women's lacrosse conferences in the entire country. So they've challenged themselves with this schedule, non-con, and it starts this Saturday at noon against Richmond.
This is a game of chutes and ladders for women's lacrosse. So you climb the ladder of the Big South, you get to a couple finals, you play within a goal of Mercer for the championship, and you slide right down that chute, and no coach in the league gave them any respect, any confidence, picked at the bottom of the league. Now,
pick last.
That's a great spot to be in certain regards. No one knows who you are. You have that upset mentality. And this is a senior-laden club. The last, 3 years with COVID, lacrosse has had 10-plus seniors. They bring back Sam Bischoff, an elite goal scorer, and really good in the draw circle. And that's just a feisty program.
Yeah.
And Dawn has built a grinded out. Girls are energetic. They're passionate. That team's going to give their 100% best, and you never have to worry about that with them.
Yeah. It's going to be a full weekend.
And don't stand near a goal with Dawn Easley, or she will hit you in the face with the ball. Point being, I have a broken tooth, but I love Dawn.
That's a story for another time. She did not do that intentionally. Workman's comp check is in the mail, but I don't know if I'm supposed to say that legally. But literally, Evan Budrovich gives the blood, sweat, and tears. Sometimes people say that, and they're doing it. He's literally gave blood, sweat, tears, and a tooth to this athletic department and this university. Oh, by the way, if you didn't think, we just talked about the plethora of games, matches. There's stuff at home. There's stuff away. There's a couple events going on, it seems like, every day. And then Sunday night at 6:30, Evan and I, who I think still like each other pretty much.
America versus Team Swift over here. With your Chiefs and my 49ers.
That's right. We both are anything but bandwagon jumpers. I was born in Kansas City, so I turned to all the Kansas City teams, and including the Chiefs, like them, even before Patrick Mahomes was a thing, before Travis Kelce was a thing, before Taylor Swift was a thing, indeed. And you, growing up in L.A., which it sounds insane, in the future, people will look and be like, wait a second.
There was no football.
You're telling me L.A. didn't have an NFL football team for that long, but they didn't, so you're a San Francisco 49ers fan.
And Joe Montana was playing football when I started watching, and Steve Young, so instantly shifted up the coast, and there you go.
And it was interesting because it's a deja vu all over again. So much has happened since then.
Please don't tell me COVID's coming in the next month.
Well, isn't that amazing when all of this stuff has been coming up? Of course, when the Chiefs won their first Super Bowl in 50 years, were in their first Super Bowl in 50 years. It was against San Francisco. It was literally a month before the world stopped with COVID. And you think about wow, that wasn't that so far ago, but that has been so long ago. It's amazing to see that part of it come up. But again, it's amazing to see that these two teams, it's like, come on, why do you have to put me and Evan against each other? Why can't we just have San Francisco in the Super Bowl alone so we can root for them, the Chiefs in the Super Bowl alone so we can root for them, but we're being at odds again.
I was at your house, your parents' house at Keith Hills, the year before they made the Super Bowl when they lost in the AFC title to Tom Brady. And Mag and Jer make a mean spread. They had great food in the house. But the disappointment of the Hemeyer family from a Chiefs loss,
big time.
That deserves like GoPros, cameras. So my documentary crew will come over if you guys want to agree to lose the game. And we'll film a Hemeyer reaction with the kids like crying because they lost and Jesse corralling the family. And then, since y'all won in 19, we can win in 24. 4 years later and call it even.
The good thing is that will be the one thing that if they don't win, one of the many things that'll make me feel good. Like my first thought will be, well, Evan is very, very happy. We decided last year, like we didn't even talk about it this time. We decided the first time we met, it was like, it's not going to be good if we watch the Super Bowl together because one person is going to be really happy, one person is not.
We're in the title game last year.
Yeah. Well, one person is not, so we won't do that. Your thoughts on your San Francisco 49ers. How is this team different than the last team?
Really good offensively. And I know people have all the comments on Brock Purdy, but that guy knows where to put the football.
And he's not, and let's be honest, he's not Jimmy Garoppolo, who made some big mistakes in that first game.
And another fun part of this is Christian Juszczyk, Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, his wife. She makes these designer NFL jackets and sweaters, and Taylor Swift has one that was designed and along with Mahomes' wife. So that part of it is like there's a pop culture element. And Olivia Culpo, Christian McCaffrey's fiance, she's not at Taylor Swift's level, but in Jenna's eyes, my fiance,
sure,
she is a big time fashionista and Instagram influencer.
You just dropped a lot of names there, including your fiance, Jenna, which is amazing. I think that's a big thing too, with the fact that it's a better quarterback, and then too, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, when healthy, which he has been for San Francisco, is one of the best running backs we've seen in the last 10 years. And he can catch out of the backfield. He can do so much. That's an X factor that was not there the last time San Francisco was in the Super Bowl.
Now, what scares me, and you saw that firsthand last year, is Patrick Mahomes when the game's on the line. He can run around and make crazy throws and finds Kelsey over in the middle of the field when he's not open.
Yeah.
Their ability to convert third downs that's one of the best I've ever seen.
Well, and it was amazing when you watch that too. You forget that was Patrick Mahomes' second year as a starter in the NFL, his first Super Bowl. He threw a couple of interceptions. He was not good early in that game. Campbell the Chiefs trailed going into Freudian slip there. The only two teams I truly love.
Presbyterian takes a 7-0 lead on Campbell in the first quarter.
The Chiefs were trailing going into that fourth quarter. He engineered a comeback with a couple of touchdowns, and that started the Mahomes magic, the Mahomes legend, and it's gone on from there. I'm going to give you, and a lot of the listeners out there, there's been a lot of, and look, I felt the same way. New England Patriots and the Chiefs are far from that level.
You're embracing the villain life, is what.
Well, you're starting to hear that a lot more. Before it's like, oh man, this is great. You wouldn't hear that. I can't believe the Chiefs are in again. Now it's like, even from close friends that were like, oh, it's so great that your team is winning. Now, like, hey, we don't really want them to be in the Super Bowl again. Let me tell you this story of a boy from Kansas City that watched his Chiefs. We lived down the country, so we didn't have cable TV. That was before satellites and everything there. So really one of the only of my hometown teams that we could get was the NFL. They would have your local team on every Sunday. So I watched a very bad Chiefs team in the 80s play. That was one thing. Nobody else in my family watched. I watched them. And then from 1986 to 2017, they won a lot of games in the regular seasons. They never really had an elite quarterback, so they would go to the playoffs a lot. They were 4-15 in the playoffs from 1986 to 2017, including, Evan, going 1-10 in the playoffs from 1994 to 2017, including, in that stretch, 7 straight first-round playoff losses. So again, lots of wins in the regular season. They would make the playoffs, but these epic collapses, much like the Eagles or much like Dallas, but that happened every year for about a decade and a half.
Friend of the program, Alex Smith, quarterback of both our teams.
You're darn right. Friend of the program, Alex Smith. The Chiefs were in Super Bowl I, and then they won Super Bowl IV. Remember what we're on now. I've lost count. It's somewhere in the 50s. Super Bowl IV. They were not in the Super Bowl again until the 2020 Super Bowl, where the Chiefs won, and then the fact that they were in another Super Bowl loss, and then got in the Super Bowl again last year and won. I will say this year, I told myself after the Super Bowl last year, I said, it cannot get better than this. I'm not going to care as much. I'm not going to make it a point to try to watch them every Sunday. I'm not going to get as invested in the game. That lasted for a little while. Then the playoffs start. They're kind of like this. The one thing I thought this year when the Chiefs were going through so much with the offense, the difference in this Chiefs team than any of their other good teams here in the last 5 years is their defense is elite. Their defense is really, really good this year. And I thought if they could find a way to make it into the playoffs and to find a little bit on offense, they'd be okay. I don't know if that means it's okay enough to win the Super Bowl. That's a lot against a good team. San Francisco is favored, and rightfully so. But their defense
I don't
can
agree
keep
with Vegas. They're putting us in a weird position here.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are clearly the quote-unquote, if you had to put two teams on paper, who you pick. I think more people are picking the Chiefs.
It's the Mahomes factor. Brock Purdy is already not Mr. Irrelevant, but does he become one of the best stories ever of the fact of a guy that was drafted last that can lead this team that has had such a great defense for so long that can finally lead this offense into the Super Bowl? I would be surprised if it's not close, but I wouldn't bet one way or the other. Number one, because that would put my job in jeopardy at the NCAA. But I think it's going to be I think it's going to be really interesting. And I tell myself, I told myself all through this playoff run, I'm like, hey, you never saw a Super Bowl. You've seen 3 with your team in it. You have 2 wins. It's okay, whatever happens. Ask me how I'm feeling in the fourth quarter if it's a tight game. But like I always say, like you have those. Like they can't take those away. It's been an amazing run again for a guy that has seen his team fail in the playoffs the first 40 years of his life and then have something and then be on such a national level. The fact that Patrick Mahomes was a national brand and now Travis Kelce is a national brand, that's weird too. Like professional teams, guys from Missouri, they're not on the national stage. But Bo Jackson, probably the only one ever, and you have to go way back for that, the baseball and football star. So it's been a very surreal half-decade of liking the Chiefs now.
I can remind you of every time we've lost to the Ravens in the Super Bowl at the goal line, lost to the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game on the Richard Sherman tip pass, lost to the Giants in the NFC Championship game on the fumble rain-out overtime game. Eli Manning beat him when they were 9-7, then beat the Patriots later that week. A Niner team that made the NFC title, and their quarterback lost his arm in the first quarter last year, and they really had no chance from that. So we've been the team that's always had great runs, made it to NFC. We have more NFC title trips than any team in the entire NFC. Second most Super Bowl appearances to the Patriots.
And see, it's interesting in that perspective because in my mind, like you forget that you have gone through those recent playoff hardships. But remember, when I grew up in the 80s and 90s, San Francisco was basically the New England Patriots with, of course, Joe Montana and then Steve Young. They were the team everybody, quote unquote, loved to hate. But again, that's been 25 years ago.
Which makes us now all feel old as we think about that.
I feel old. You don't feel old.
Good luck.
Hey,
we'll talk to you on Monday.
Good luck. Good luck to you.
This is the last time I'm talking to you until the game.
Hopefully one of us will be back on this podcast. And again, like I say, at least for me, and I understand if it's not for Evan, if the Chiefs don't win another Super Bowl, I'll be very happy for Evan because I know he loves San Francisco almost as much as I love the Chiefs. Good luck, my friend.
Hey, I'm not going to bet on it till March 11th, but it's a fun final month of no legalized sports betting.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that'll be another, that'll be a podcast. We'll have to put that offline. All right, for Evan, I'm Chris. Hey, thank you so much for listening, those of you that are still sticking around through my 10-minute soliloquy on the Kansas City Chiefs. Have a great one.